What's going on, everybody? C4, welcome back to the channel, and today, quick little video for you guys. I feel in a good enough spot to drop this video. I'm going to show you, generally, everything that I do to run my Madden 22 franchise, but most importantly, I will be showing you my All Madden sliders that so far, if you've been paying attention, you've been following along on the Eagles franchise, or if you just stumbled upon this video looking for sliders for your franchise, trust me, these sliders have been absolute money. All Madden Default is not fun, and All Pro Default, even All Pro with sliders, is too easy. So we kind of looked around, and eventually on OperationSports.com, which is a tremendous asset for sliders and just really for Madden content. It's a good. I'm not really active over there, but if I ever need sliders, they have a terrific slider form for console players primarily. They had some sliders. There's a guy named Flatzko. I've heard of him before. He made sliders called All Flatzko sliders. And essentially what they were supposed to be were All Madden sliders, but it was more like an intermediate difficulty between All Pro and All Madden. We used those. That was kind of our starting point, and it was too easy. We used them in Season 2. This year you're seeing is Season 3. But we used those in Season 2 of the Eagles franchise, and when we popped them on, I think we played 10 games and won 8, lost 2. And I felt like it could be a little bit more difficult. So we used those sliders as a base, and we've slowly tweaked it to get to the point where we are here. And yes, we are undefeated. Yes, we have yet to lose, and you might be like, that's a little suspect. But the context and the difficulty and the challenges that came in each 3 of these games is exactly the difficulty, me personally, that I want for my all Madden experience. And hopefully, if you've been watching, kind of want the same thing, we'll walk through it. But I mean, this Giants game here, we were down 17-13. We hit a 75-yard Hail Mary at the end of the game to win. This game here, we won by a field goal, and the Jets had the ball on the final drive and got tackled on the 1-yard line. They were very close to scoring that touchdown and winning. And then this game here against the Green Bay Packers, it was 46-46, an all-out shootout, and it went in overtime, and it almost came a tie. Like, we kicked the field goal at the dying moments of overtime. So an uber competitive game. And with these sliders, I mean, you're not in this one here. The last episode we actually dropped, there was some All Madden cheese that happened. I had Darius Slay, my X Factor corner, jumped up, had a gimme pick for some reason, just bobbled off his hands, went to the Green Bay Packers receiver in the end zone. It was a touchdown. Really ridiculous. Probably would never happen in real life. And there's always going to be a certain element of All Madden that you can't really get away from. But my sliders, I think so far, and these sliders, I would say they're about 90% done. Could be some tweaking here or there, and I will highlight those as we go through it. But I really do think, and I will show big picture what I'm doing for all my sliders. These All Madden sliders should be really, really fun for you guys in your franchise modes. So for the XP sliders, because I guess we will kind of act as if I'm showing you how to set up a franchise, how I set up my franchises. I go default XP sliders. And I have a slight uptick here for kickers and punters, just because, for example, Jake Elliott did miss a field goal, was kicker of the year, and he went up 1 overall point, 1 skill point that entire season. So kickers and punters, I find in particular, are very, very slow. But everything else, I just left it at 100. I mean, I might eventually get into trying to find good XP sliders, but there's a lot of annoying testing. I don't really want to test it out. You're just going to have to do a lot of like multi-season sims, see growth rates, everything in between. And you look around for like top community XP sliders, and they're like 5 points, 2-3 points either way for the most part. And if it's like that, it is what it is. And these are almost personal preference, because you remember these XP sliders are not just for your team. You're not going to be able to just cheese your team. These are XP sliders that get applied for the whole league. So if you really want to see quarterback development and you bump these up to 200, yes, your quarterback's getting 200% increase on XP. So is every other quarterback in the league. So everyone else is just going to be dominating. So you got to remember all these. That's something I think people do forget from time to time, is that these sliders apply to every team, not just your team. So I think default is really a good spot for them to be. All right, so let's go into the base settings, because in this, there's a couple things that I think go into this difficulty and the sliders for how they work. So we're going All Madden skill level, sim game style. From there, the only other things I've really done, these not really have anything to do with the difficulty of the game. This is what I run. I always turn off relocation settings, because sometimes the AI will relocate weird teams. I have the staff talent cost modifier on normal. You want that grind. Injuries always on. I really do think having the fatigue and practice injuries as well. Some people are afraid of change, and they don't ever want to tick on the new features that are available in Madden. I think that these add an appropriate level of realism in terms of injuries. Like I had Quez Watkins, had 300 receiving yards in a loss in the NFC Championship game. I was expecting a breakout for him here this season in my franchise. First 2 weeks, back-to-back weeks, he got hurt in practice. So that's an added little bit of challenge, little mystery thrown into things. I turned the play cooldown limit. I turned it on, and it's 5. So you can call a play, but then you have to wait 5 plays in between. I was thinking about actually putting in like an actual limit so I can't go back and run slants multiple times if the coach calls it. But I found like that is good. I think on offense, the play call limit is a little bit more useful. Defensively is where to get a little strung out because with your scheme, I felt like with this on, a lot of times, like my coach wouldn't suggest a defensive play call that I could call because they were just not existent anymore. So I really felt this one on the defensive side when it was on. So I turned it off, and I feel like the 5 limit there seems to work. And ultimately, to tie in with this, I think it's worth running house rules that you set on your own franchise to get the most of it. I think just call what the coach wants. I think the biggest issue right now for some users is like anytime you drop sliders, like, well, I still scored 60 points on All Madden. But then I guarantee if you look at the way that these people would be calling the plays, they're running like money plays. They're running money plays on offense and defense. And I think to just get the most out of your franchise, it's good to have house rules where you limit to the 3 plays that come in when you ask your coach or whatever you want to do for that. But that is a house rule that I personally use, and I think it definitely helps with your franchise modes in terms of keeping it competitive. Roster size is what it is, personal preference. Absolutely turn dev trait regression on. Like if you're watching this and you're in a multi-league that you have to ask another commissioner, you're not in control of it, turn this off. Dev trait regression is incredibly broken. It is not worth the headache of having, what's the positive of this? For the most part, regression. It's losing is when like the veterans go hit the free agency market. Like you have X factors that are like in the 60s. That's a little annoying, but that's nowhere near as annoying as having a player be like, I had Darius Slay, who was a superstar. He was the interception leader, DB of the year. He went up to a superstar X factor, and then in the exact same window regressed down to a star dev. It's incredibly broken. Make sure you have dev trait regression off. I like using 12-minute quarters. I find like that's the money zone, especially for getting accurate numbers. You could still have quarterbacks that go for 40 passing attempts, as well as running backs getting, 15, 20. I feel like 12 like this with 20 minimum play clock time with the accelerated clock on. That's the money zone for getting a good amount of snaps in on offense and defense. Because, some people play on like 4-minute quarters. Like, how come I never have linebackers that go over 100 tackles? Like, well, you got to play a little bit longer quarters. And I feel like with 12 minutes, you don't get put into a spot where you just feel like you have to score, man. You got to score as quickly as possible. You can kind of take your time. You can have some balance to your offense. You're not just doing 4 verts and big bombs down the field. You can have, 3 straight, 4 straight runs, stuff like that, and not worry about the quarters just pissing away. So I like 12-minute quarters there. Everything else I have on manual. I have all these ones on and off. And these aren't really that much important. But I think the biggest thing in your league settings, turn dev trait regression off, turn play call limit to 5, set house rules in effect that you call what the coach brings in, and make sure it's on Sim and All Madden. Now, here are the sliders, and I'll go through the sliders. There's a couple areas on both sides that I think I'm going to continue to monitor, and I could potentially address. The issue is that I'm basing all of these off my Eagles franchise, and my Eagles team is pretty good. Not elite. We're probably like a fringe top 10 team, but we have some stars. Like I have a really good running back. So it's tough for me to see if for example, my run blocking is too high because Miles Sanders can constantly get 100 yards, or is it because Miles Sanders is really good and he's going to get 100 yards? It's the kind of the yin to the yang there. Is it the sliders that makes Miles Sanders so good, or is it because Miles Sanders is a top 5 running back? That's why he's so good. So that's why it's a little difficult, but we have QB accuracy at 52, pass blocking 66, 60, run blocking 64, fumbles at 60, pass defense reaction time at 70, INTs at 25. You might be a little scared about 25. Still had 8 picks with Darius Slay last year. Most of them were not really me either. They're like diving picks, animated picks from Darius Slay because he's a playmaker, so that kind of worked out well. 70 on the pass coverage and 59 on the tackle. Now looking at these, again, these are the ones that are working. Ones that I am kind of considering lowering at this point. I'm good with the accuracy. I think pass blocking and run blocking, those two, I feel like at times my offensive line is just insane. But again, I'm the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles offensive line across the board is one of the best offensive lines in the game. So I don't know if it's just my offensive line playing as they're supposed to, playing to their ratings, or it's the sliders. So that's something that, depending on what team you're doing, if you have an offensive line that's not very good and you're still running the ball like crazy, definitely get back to me, because then it knows that like maybe I can knock this down, within like, a 10-point window between 66 and 56, 64 and 54. That's probably going to be the money range, but try these ones out. Same goes for the pass defense reaction time. This one here is the one that I'm probably most close to nerfing just a little bit because it's the highest. 70 and 70 is pretty high, kind of compensates for the 25 interceptions. But again, it feels still pretty good. Opposing quarterbacks don't go for 90% completions like they do on default All Madden. You still get some interceptions here or there, but I think they are pretty good at 70-70. Looking at the QB skill, 28 is perfect for quarterbacks. I think that's an absolute money zone where the quarterback is not always just dumping it off to the tight end and running back for easy completions. He's not going for 90% completion percentages every single game. It feels like it's in a terrific spot. Their pass blocking feels pretty good. This one, I do get a lot of sacks, but again, I get a lot of sacks like Fletcher Cox. I think this one is another one I want to monitor, though, just because it could be a little more difficult. I've considered, between 35 and 40, working with that a little bit, and it will be something I continue to monitor. 47 for wide receiver catching feels good. 35 for pass blocking feels decent. I find like with this, the only thing that's real evidence is like when I go up against teams, how the running back's playing. And I feel like at 35, we saw just in the last game, I went against Aaron Jones and the Green Bay Packers. He ran all over me, had 100 yards, but the running back's not good. If you're going up against a team that has 78 overall starting running back, they're not going to feast. So it feels like that running blocking is where it needs to be. 50 for the fumbles, 40 for pass defense reaction time, 26 on the interceptions, 35 on pass coverage, 38 on tackle. Tackling is another one. That's probably the closest I am to modifying right now is tackling. Feel like there's still a couple missed tackles that might not be consistent enough for me from the AI standpoint. So tackling is an area that I'm definitely continuing to keep tabs on, as well as pass blocking. But everything else for the CPU skill, I think, is where it needs to be. Field goal power I have at 60. I feel like this is more so for the computer. I feel like the computer, even if they have a good kicker, they're kicking it short a lot of times. So I might even bump that up to 65. Everything else pretty much as is. I have injuries at 15, fatigue 55, speed threshold at 75. Now we go into the wild world of penalties. This is where you start looking at like Matt 10 sliders, Flatzko sliders. These guys that's their thing, is making sliders. They always hammer home the fact that penalties are tied to animations and some of the gameplay. So this is pretty much de facto to what they have. 75 on offside, 75 false start, 70 holding, 50 face mask, 50 defensive pass interference, on and on. I nerfed illegal block in the back down to 40 because this was happening almost every other drive. I was getting an illegal block in the back downfield after you got the first down from a wide receiver or something like that. And it was pretty annoying. So I nerfed that down to 40. Intentional grounding off. Now I could be speaking out my ass a little bit, but this is something that most people that do sliders turn it off. And I think it's tied to the fact that it makes the AI, the quarterback, a little bit more aggressive. He's not just doing if you played Madden enough, you've seen your quarterback that you're going up against just do some nonsensical throwaways. And I've noticed ever since I turned intentional grounding off, they seem to be a lot more aggressive. Try to stay in the pocket to the last second, try to find a guy down open. So absolutely turn this one off. Roughing the passer on 50, and then we have kicker, all these contacts and stuff on. That's pretty much it, fellas. I don't know. The seeker abilities and stuff like that, I don't want to go down any further because you see the login stuff for my Eagles franchise. But I have for the seeker, you have 3 options at the bottom here for heat seeker, auto switch. All those I have as turn on. I don't know if that means that it's on or it's off, but that's just what I have, and I feel like those also help out the gameplay just a little bit. So there you go. Those are the all C4 sliders. Easiest way, probably just pause the video, copy them if you want. And for sure, let me know in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter. Twitter's probably the easier way to get instant feedback from me, which is at PapaXC4. If you guys want to check out these sliders, let me know what's working, what's not working, any areas that you think. And don't just say C4, the pass needs to be better. Like what? Give me some actual evidence that would make me go, if this user is experiencing that, maybe I should try that, or maybe I should nerf that, or maybe I should buff that. But I think right now, proof is in the pudding, and 3 games into the Eagles franchise, these sliders have been absolute money. So check them out. Let me know what you guys think. And if it does help you out, these sliders are money for you and your franchises, your multi-user franchises. a like. I would very much appreciate a like on this video. Subscribe if it's your first time stopping by, and I'll see you guys back here on the next one. Thanks for watching, and peace out.